Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días. It's the Chancleta Generation podcast once again. And we're just ending the season already. I can't believe it. Season 8.
I cannot believe we're at the end of the year.
Oh my God, I know.
Season 8.
Yeah.
For your podcast.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't believe it either. It's like sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to start the season. What are we doing? And then it's like, oh, it's the end of the season. What are we doing for the next season?
That is the content grind. You know it. I know it. We both know it.
Yep. That's right. All right, everyone. I hope you know by now, I am Clemencia, your host and the founder of Moneda Studio, an advertising agency that communicates with Latinos authentically. And so, as we just mentioned, as we're coming to the closing of 2024 and we're looking to 2025, some of us, might be making plans, might be, putting together some goals. I know that maybe people are like, oh, I don't believe in these, resolutions, but, still just kind of start thinking about like what we're doing for 2025. And now, some of these goals and dreams and milestones that we're putting together have to do with money. I mean, not directly or indirectly. And now we've talked about money and investments here in the past, and wealth and like generational wealth and all of that. But today we're going to be talking more specifically about like short term, like 2025, and how is it that we're seeing things financially in the next year. And now, because I'm sure you all know that I am no financial expert. And I'm usually not an expert in a lot of things. I usually bring on experts to talk about things. So this is why we have Lyanne Alfaro today from Moneda Moves to help us make sense of all of this. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Clemencia.
I'm super excited because as I said, I'm usually not really like super financially. It's my husband is the one that knows about finances. I'm like, are we making enough money? I hope we're making enough. So I'm excited to learn today. So about Lyanne, a journalist turned multi-hyphenate, explores the future of technology, business, and entrepreneurship with a focus on the Latino influence via her podcast and newsletter Moneda Moves. Today, she also freelances for the likes of Forbes, while previously she was supervising producer for podcasts and live streams of newly IPO'd companies at NASDAQ, reported as CNBC, NBC Latino, and Business Insider, while earning recognition from Time Magazine. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce this other one. SABEW, Hispanic Executive.
Sabu. Yeah, no, there's a few mentions, but no, they're Society of American Writers and Business Editors.
Oh.
It's a lot. It's a long acronym.
Sabu. Hispanic Executive and Goldman Sachs and other prestigious awards. Very nicely done.
Un poco de todo. It's been a journey, and I mean, listen, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a financial planner, a financial personal finance expert, right? The thing that a lot of financial planners like to say that I like to add on to my tagline is personal finance is personal. And so what I do have a lot of experience in is covering Latino entrepreneurs here in the US, knowing what it is that they're dealing with, what it is that they're struggling with, what questions they're asking. And so that's what I'm really excited to talk with you, Clemencia, about today, and to hopefully instill in folks that feel like they're not money savvy, to know that it is in your capability. And especially if you run a business, like, you are very capable of money savviness, and hopefully to share some of what's top of mind from other business experts that I've been speaking with as well.
I mean, sometimes the personal financial planning comes from observing what's going on out there, and observing the trends, and then you can make some better decisions, because obviously we don't live in a bubble.
100% we don't live in a bubble. And if you think about one of the biggest levers when people say, are you ready for personal finance, to take a hold of your finances in the new year? They're going to talk about what's in your bank account, your assets, everything that you own, and also beyond saving, investing. Investing is absolutely socially influenced, right? I mean, we saw at the end of this recent election, the stock market responded in kind. This is not a siloed activity. It is absolutely a communal activity and communally influenced. And so it's very important to be paying attention to the news and what's happening in the ecosystem.
So, you know, let me just preface by saying that, you know, the economy has been top of mind for Latinos for, you know, not just this year, for a long time, but this year it has been much more noticeable, mostly because, you know, the elections and people voted for their pocket. It like that was the main thing that everybody said, like polling, and then the way that, you know, the decisions moved on people, they were just like the economy. That is like, sometimes we think of the economy as this like thing over there that is like, you know, some like sort of ephemeral thing that has its own mind and life. And it's like, no, we make the economy. We make it. You know, we're the ones that actually influence it. So, So I love to hear a little bit about like where you think about, you know, this intersection of like how we influence the economy versus like how we influence our votes, and also, you know, what that all means for the new year.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And so here's my take on it. It is super important to be reading like the news if you want to know how the economy is tracking when it comes to the professionals, the people that study this, right? In order to know what the economists are saying about the way that it's doing, the way that inflation is doing, right? Interest rates, something we hear about when we apply to own a home. I do think that we're at an inflection point where there's a little bit of a disconnect between what we're hearing in terms of the economy doing and how I've heard Latino business owners experience it in their pockets, right? So for example, from economists, we're hearing, hey, inflation has actually leveled out. The Biden administration on its way out released a press release saying that the GDP rose almost 13% since Biden stepped into office, but people are not experiencing it as a win, right? Like, a lot of business owners, especially small business owners that I speak to, but I think the turn is in kind for startups, and I'll talk a little bit about how they're handling things as well. If you think about the mom and pop shop, the restaurateur, they're thinking about, okay, what's the cost of my ingredients, of corn, of oil to fry things? And the way that they're experiencing it is, oh, well, fact of the matter is 2019, 2018, oil was looking a whole lot cheaper than it is now. To buy oil to fry, to like groceries are looking a whole lot more expensive. And so when it comes to margins and selling a single pupusa, a single like bagel at the store, it is more expensive, the ingredients. And so therefore these costs do rise, and their margins they experience, though, because of how much they feel like they can rise it, they can be smaller, right? So I do think that there's a little bit of a disconnect between what we're hearing in terms of how the economy is doing, because by all expectations, the Biden administration actually exceeded what they thought they would see coming out of a pandemic, right? Remember, the pandemic is not like an every so often occurrence. It was so unprecedented. Pandemics, by definition, happen every 100 years. So the last pandemic that we had happened about 100 years ago. You can bet that a lot has changed since then. Technology, the gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? Like the income gap that exists. And so I do think that we're still seeing effects of the pandemic happening today, which I don't know that we talk about as often.
Nobody wants to talk about the pandemic anymore.
But we want to move on. We want to move on from the word unprecedented. We want to move on from like the trauma, the collective trauma that we experience. But the matter of fact is there's ripple effect that's happening in the economy that's disproportionately impacting people that are low income. And so we talk a lot about race, and even with Moneda, right? We talk a lot about Latinidad. We don't talk about class. And talking about class, I think, is going to become even ever so important, because when we talk about the recent election through the context of class, you can begin to understand why the GOP, the Republican Party, spoke to so many people, the have-nots. The people that felt forgotten, left behind, right? And that's because we're seeing this gap widen more than ever. Let's talk about the Latina wage gap really quickly, which I know you've had on your show as a topic matter. I also wrote about this for Forbes recently. The Latina wage gap is the widest that it's been in 20 years. Let that sink in for a little bit. And the thing that we do when we talk about Latinas, we tend to lob them all together in the same group. But the matter of fact is we vary by class, right? You're going to have a lot of Latinas in hospitality, retail. Those are getting hit the hardest. Caregivers don't get paid oftentimes for their work. And meanwhile, you have people in tech industries where the gap may be shorter. But the matter of fact is Latinas overall are losing $1.2 million, but people in those lower income jobs are going to be hit the hardest. And so when you go to the grocery store and both a professional that's in a higher six-figure income job and a caregiver who maybe is just a caregiver, they do a ton, but it's just not as compensated by society. They're facing the same price and having it impact them dramatically differently. And so I think when we think about the economy and what Latinos and what folks are going to be, how folks are going to be assessing what they see on the news versus what they feel in their pocket, they're absolutely going to be more drawn to people that speak to them, that are able to draw that connection and say, okay, great for the economy. What does that mean for me? Does that mean I'm going to be able to make rent? Does that mean I'm going to be subject to another rent hike on top of these grocery bills? And especially for a business owner, like, am I going to be able to afford the goods in order to sell things at my business, right? Like, these are the kind of questions that are coming to. And so I really think we need more people drawing the lines between how the economy is doing and how this is impacting people. And I think that the answer is that when we see, or part of the answer, is that when we see these numbers top level come through, like about GDP growth, inflation leveling out, it takes some time to trickle, especially down to the people that are impacted the most. And so we really need to be talking to people that aren't the anomalies when it comes to the wage, but people who are actually the most in need, the most disenfranchised. And that goes beyond Latinidad, that goes into a conversation about class, right?
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, there were a lot of initiatives in terms of like the Democrats that they talked about, like the child tax credit and, you know, other things that to help out, you know, specifically women or women business owners, but it still didn't click. 100%. It still did not get them there. You know what I mean? And, you know, you and me were talking about this, you know, before this show, in which we were saying that, you know, Latinos don't really want to feel like they're being helped, you know, like it's like it's more like I've worked my butt off, and like it's more about not being helped. It's like what they deserve, like what they deserve for their hard work, right? It's not.
I mean, I hear you on that. Trust me, I know that. Like, we were applicable for food stamps growing up, and my dad did not want that. We did not do food stamps.
Yeah, because it's like there's like pride in the work and the hard work and all of that. They're just like this whole language of like handouts, which is not really handouts, because you know what? This is coming from our taxes, from the taxes that we pay. So they're not free. They're not just coming from the ether. They're coming from us. We paid for them. And so it's like this language that the GOP has been using by the handouts has really resonated with Latinos. Like, we don't want things for free. We want more like investments, or we want like higher wages, or we want like, this is like more, less of like a program sounding thing and more of like a economy sounding thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think like after the dust has settled, this is where I believe that the Democratic Party kind of failed in communicating.
Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective. I don't know that I've thought about that much, that Latinos don't want handouts, although I have seen that trend, obviously, like I mentioned, in my own family and some among the Latino community. But, you know, the other common thread among the Latino community is that we are business generators. And a lot of it is by necessity, right? Like we've known this for some time because Stanford does a really good job at polling every year through the LBAN. But we generate new businesses at a 34% clip. So we lead beyond all other subsector groups. And a lot of this is because of necessity. The biggest group within Latinos that leads in business creation is immigrants. So we have been uniquely positioned to think about the economy, to ask these questions and say, because I hear your point. I hear your point about like not wanting handouts, but I think that a lot of Latinos have been thrust into the position to start their own business. And so they are asking questions like, how are you going to help me run a business successfully? And what do I need for that? I need to be able to afford the goods to put the business together, afford the talent. I need to be able to have capital infusion, aka loans or investments. I need the banking system to stop being so damn complicated for Latinos to grow in it. And that's not to say that Latinos like have any it's not about the mental setback, it's about the systemic setbacks, right? Like, why is it so hard to acquire a loan? We're sending in for approvals at very high rates. We're adopting marketing agencies very quickly. We're very savvy about it. We just need more frictionless opportunity. So while I hear what you're saying about the handouts, I also think that a lot of Latinos are in a position to be asking questions about business, right? And even if they don't have a business of their own, they might operate like gig workers. Like 2 in 5 Americans are now gig workers, part of the gig economy. They're working for an Uber and they have lower protections, right? So again, they end up in this vulnerable part of the population where they're being hit the heaviest by all of this aftermath of the pandemic, by interest rates, right? When they're trying to secure a home, by all of these things. And so while the economy may be improving, they're sitting here like, it's really expensive to build in this country from where I'm sitting as a business owner.
So what should we do about it?
Yeah, excellent question. I think Latinos are already doing a lot of things about it, right? And so these are the kind of trends that will continue to 2025 when we're thinking about it. There's a lot of Latinos adopting, finding nifty ways, cheaper ways to get things done. I think where that's the most expensive and the hardest is in small business restaurateurs, which I mentioned, because you cannot simply, how do you don't have a backdoor. I say this knowing that like there probably are backdoors, but there's not like a mainstream way to get cheaper oil, right? That being said, and this is a story that I haven't written, but one that's on my radar. I have heard that because produce markets, for example, handle a lot of their transactions in cash, and it's not documented, they may actually have a way to get cheaper goods, right? But that is not the mainstream way, right? Like, I think when it comes to startups, they have found AI is a great hack to get more done. So we're seeing Latinos adopt AI for their businesses at rates even faster than white-owned businesses. Yeah, that's going to be a trend that continues into 2025. It's cost effective. You can be. I was having a conversation with a journalist that's like, we will have yet to see the unicorn company that is run by one person. And the way that AI is moving, we see the possibility of being able to automate more and more. Another thing that Latino business owners and business owners in general are doing if they have online platforms, tech startups, is hiring talent abroad and cross-border business. So we see Latinos hiring talent from other countries because it will come at a cheaper cost to them with living expenses in this country. Similarly, we're seeing Latin American, and this is less related to the issue we just stated, but this is an ongoing trend. We'll see Latin American countries start marketing more, or Latin American startup companies start marketing more in the US. So we'll see a lot of crossing borders. Companies here setting up shop in different parts of LATAM and hiring talent and catering to that audience, and vice versa. So we're going to see a lot more cross-border, especially because of proximity, LATAM and the US.
That sounds exciting. The other thing that, I went to a conference in DC earlier this year in which there's a lot of legislature that still needs to happen, to open some more opportunities for Latinos to do business 100%. In Latin America, exporting taxes, also like talent, talent acquisition. There's still a lot of like people hire people overseas, but it's not as like
that is not regulated.
Right.
It's not regulated. When it gets regulated, I think we may see like a slowdown. And it's not all of this that I'm saying, like I don't have the stats yet, right? It's not heavily documented, but it is what I'm hearing when I talk, especially to startups and even smaller shops and smaller businesses like agencies here. They're like, I paid the US rates, but if the income is not coming in at the rate and I need to make a margin at the rate that I need to make a margin, I'm going to go seek talent abroad, right? So I'm seeing the rise in that, and I'm sure it'll be more documented. I'm sure more regulation is to come, but I think this is a way to kind of, it's like you're faced with a challenge.
Right.
How are we going to work with that challenge? We're going to have cross-border talent. We're going to have talent here. We're needed. Talent over there. We're needed. The other thing that I'm seeing is like Latinas in particular as business owners. I gotta say, I gotta give a shout out 2024 to Latinas. Everything from the way that they showed up in the polls, like even showing up to vote, to business generation. Latinas are movers and shakers, and I see them creating a lot of community. And community is gonna be so essential when it comes to beating the odds and challenges, because a lot of that has to do with, in order to grow your business, a lot of Latino businesses, really, we launch at big rates, but we struggle with making it past a certain amount, right? A couple years ago when I reported this, it was past $1 million ARR. I think that has risen since. But like Latinas are going to be able to unblock this because I see them not only starting businesses, but building community, which is a place where you connect capital, network, and you also bring down some of that gatekeeping. So you're able to say, oh, I know someone that you can connect with for talent. I can get you this opportunity. If we can break through that first, that's going to help us get ahead, right? Like this big wage gap that we're facing. We talk so much about all the power in the Latino community. Like we hold the key, but the door is only unlocked. We can only use that key if we actually are connecting and sharing resources, right? So I see a lot of that movement in the Latina community, and I think that that's going to be a trend continuing into 2025 in different pockets and in different ways. The space is big. I really do think that there's a lot of people that are focusing on like how, yes, competition is part of capitalism. How can we also enforce collaboration? Because that's absolutely key to turning that knob and opening that door in the floodgates of what Latino power is. The other thing that I'm going to see for 2025, I think, is value alignment. We're seeing the clawbacks of DEI. They started early, it's like very solidly with the affirmative action case that came from Ivy Leagues and bleeding over into the business space very solidly. We saw that last year, continued this year. We're probably going to see continued pushbacks with this administration into the new year. And so I think that what we're going to see a lot from companies that are still value aligned with DEI is to just make their values known. Like, what are the values behind DEI, right? It's equity, it's whatever it may be, serving disenfranchised communities, call them out, and connecting with other people that are on the same wavelength. Like, again, like when we put those pieces together, we're stronger. So I really think people are going to be calling out their values, whether they are in that space or not in that space. People are going to be very vocal about it. So I would encourage people to be mindful, pay attention, know where you want to stand so that you can gravitate not against the grain, but towards the flow of what your values are in shaping your business and having the kind of capital, contributing to capitalism, because we're all in this system, in the way that aligns with your business.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years ago, in 2020, when there was a lot of talk of also like removing DI and like there was a lot of racist rhetoric going on. There was a movement that was like a big movement to do the complete opposite, that they were like, no, let's double down on equity, and I'm really hoping that this happens again, because we can't go back. We can't go back to where we were. And now Latinos are much more powerful than we were even 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have a lot more spending power. We have a lot of more, the money talks, right? And basically when Latinos say we want this and we have the economic power to say it, they're gonna be listening. Because before it was like, oh, it's just a bunch of blah blah blah. No. Things are different now.
they see the power. I think they see the power, and I think that's why I think that Latinos are not going to be put back in a box. I think it's going to be really hard to. I think it's a matter of value alignment, right? Like, where are your values held? Do you believe in mindful capitalism? Like, what does that mean to you, right? Like, when we think about things like cultural appropriation, when we think about things like entering a disenfranchised community with all of these resources, like, I think that paying attention to those things is going to be very important. And eventually going back to some kind of system, like us in society agreeing by and large that there is a system to measure it, right? The other 3-letter acronym that I think it holds a lot of power is ESG, environmental, social, and governance, right? During my time at NASDAQ, that was a very big 3-letter acronym, because the Nordics had picked it up, and then it was very big in the Nordics, and where you sat on ratings on those 3 meant something to people who made business. Like, are you keeping in mind the governance, the way that you choose the diversity of people that are on your board? Are you keeping in mind sustainability? So I do think that we will need to pay attention to those things as we build businesses in order to maintain integrity. So in my view, at the end of the day, you can build all you want. Integrity is all you've got.
I totally agree with that, because it's like, one thing is thinking about what happens to you as an individual, and another thing is what happens to us as a community, right? It's like, do we also believe in community advancement? Is it just like, I'm gonna be successful and then everybody else can like go fry asparagus? Or are we gonna grow all together as a community? Am I gonna also like support other groups, advancing as well? It's like, that is like, this is the thing that we keep talking about. It's like, now that we have the power and we have more voice, we can create whatever we want with it. We don't have to imitate the old system. We don't have to imitate the old capitalism, the old classist system. We can make it whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's knowing that the brush is in our hands right now, and we're literally painting history in real time, right? So I was going to say something else. But yeah, value alignment, I think, is going to be big. So I think if you're a business, like, know what values you stand on, communicate those, and follow through, right? Like, the other thing I was going to say, the other belief to question and ask yourself about, do you believe that the pie only gets bigger for Latinos if you help someone else, if you collaborate with someone else? Because that is a fundamental belief that I have, because I have seen it in effect. Yeah. However, it is a lot of the conversations that do happen in these rooms is like, do you remember when we were like, we had the crabs, quote unquote, crabs in a bucket mentality, and we used to think that like we Latinos, quote unquote, again, used to think that like if someone got the opportunity, no one else could. And the matter of fact is like the reason that perhaps people felt that way is because there were limited seats, and because we felt like we needed to get those seats, and there were only so many. But now the beauty of having all this research, the beauty of all of the Latinos that started businesses, is that we are contributing to the pie, and we see that when we contribute to the pie, it really just does get bigger. So do we buy that enough? Are we convinced of that enough? Do we have like that backbone then to say, okay, great, let's put that to test, let's put that to action, and go and collaborate with people in our community that are value aligned, so that we can in fact continue to grow this pie.
Yeah, they're really thinking about like, are we really sitting at the table? And you know what? We truly are. We showed the U.S. politics that we truly sit at a table, and that we truly can move mountains here. And so what are we going to do with that power? I know that sometimes it feels like we don't have it, but I think socially we do, and politically, definitely, economically, without us, this country will stop working. And so in a way, we really need to, say we can hurt them where it hurts the most, which is in the pocket. And so when I mean them is whatever forces are working against us, we can hurt them where they hurt the most, which is in their pocket, because we control a huge chunk of the economy. And so what are we going to do with that power? We can influence that power in whatever way we want. Are we going to do it for good, or are we going to just do it for ourselves? And this is where I think, and I with you and me are totally aligned, in which, like, in with more power comes more responsibility. And we've been fighting for that power for so long. And now it's like, okay, what are we going to do with it?
Exactly. And this is something that I haven't heard as much from business owners, because I do think that business owners, like, it's like their baby. They have got to watch out for it. But from people like me, and I see a lot of Latinos in these rooms, is we talk about investing. And of course, there's investing in the stock market. Something that I'm also interested in is finding new venues for investing in our community and those businesses that we have. Like, I'm a business owner. I also work a corporate job. I'm working out a way. I took a course on angel investing this year, which was led by Inicio Ventures. It's a fund that funded by Hispanics in philanthropy. They have a fund that then focuses on training people to be angel investors so that they can go and invest on other startups. It just so happens that a lot of us want to invest in startups that either serve or are created by the Latino community for issues that the Latino community experiences. But mind you, a lot of these also impact, people in the Black community, people in the Asian community. But it's the common thread, the common denominator is like unique issues that are faced by a disenfranchised community. So I think that there's a way to do well. And all of this is investing, right? Like, it's still that capitalist foundation of like, I hope to get a return. It is riskier investing. Yes, you might not get your value back because it's angel investing and it's at a much earlier stage than usual. But exploring those things, if you are able to, I think continues to push the like, yes, I want to do well. And I want people, like, I want value like alignment. I want people in the community. Exactly. Yeah. People to do well in the community. And how can we be a part of that change?
If you're a Latina that has felt like you had to fight tooth and nail for every opportunity you've had, wouldn't you want to give more chances to more Latinas like you?
Right.
Exactly. Wouldn't you want to open the roads for people like you, for the next generation of Latinas to do it? Wouldn't you want to do it? I want to do it. I don't want anybody 100%. Else to feel the pain of, going
and
against
listen,
the current.
I wanna open the door and leave the door stopper there so that it stays open. Yeah. Right. Especially for people that I know have the grit, because I came from a neighborhood in Chicago that was, low income, very immigrant. There was quite a bit of gang activity on the streets, but I met a lot of really great kids. And those kids are now adults, and I saw how a lot of this is an access issue. Mm-hmm. Let's access not to opportunities. Access to opportunity. Let's not get it twisted that people who have been in these positions for decades on decades, like that they are just more deserving. Mm-hmm. Let's look in our community, and if we truly believe in the power of our community, let's look in our community and look for value alignment, because we can definitely build together here.
Yes, I love that. With that, this is a great closing statement. We can all build together. Yay!
We can absolutely build together.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe half an hour has gone by. It was so quick. Thank you so much, Lyanne. Where can people find you? Tell me more about your podcast. Give us all your socials.
Yeah, thank you, Clemencia. Thanks for the amazing conversation. Moneda Moves, it's a podcast that drops seasonally, weekly. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also at Moneda Moves across social channels, and monedamoves.substack.com.
Nice. Thank you so much. And if you want to find me, you know where to find me, Chancleta Generation, on the Instagrams and on the TikToks. And if you like this podcast, send it to somebody else. Because, everybody wants to know about money. Share it with people.
Spread the wealth.
yes, spread the wealth and give us a comment, give us a rating if you want more of this. And after this episode, we're gonna be taking a small break so we can all rest up and do the holiday thing, comer pernil and natilla con buñuelos so and all that stuff. We go to Colombia and do the Navidad stuff, and then we'll be back with some more awesome guests. And if you want to know from any kind of topic, give us an email. And we'll get you a guest to talk about it because we can. Alrighty.
Amen.
Happy holidays, everyone. Feliz Navidad. Take care. Bye.
Felices fiestas.